All right,
But it's slowing. Hello, sir.
let's get this show on the road. Officially open the June 1st 5 Sacramento meeting. Commissioner Snaringer, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you like water?
Thank you.
We take,
Dave Gordon,
oh, sorry, roll.
Beth Hassett,
Here.
Terrence Jones, Olivia Kassiri, Scott Moak, Phil Cerna. With Phil Cerna gone, Patrick Kennedy will be voting. Scott Moak is out, so Christina Elliott will be voting. And Terrence Jones is out, so Lee Turner Johnson will be voting today. This meeting of the First 5 Sacramento Commission is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated on Wednesday, June 6th at 9 p.m. and Monday, June 11th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the Commission may sign a speaker slip at the kiosk located in the back of the room. Please include the agenda item number that you wish to address and then bring the completed form to me. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the Commission and state your name for the record. If you have any electronic devices, please put them on silent or turn off now. Thank you.
First item.
Approval, there are two items on the consent this time. Approval of May 7th, 2018 draft action summary and the authority to enter a credit adjust to the unreserved fund balance in the amount of $458,644.61 for your consideration today.
Would anyone like to?
I would move the consent agenda.
All right. Do we have to do a roll call vote or all in favor?
I need a second.
Oh, second.
Oh, who did the first? No. Okay.
Dave Gordon and then Patrick.
That's a roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Okay. Dave Gordon,
Aye.
Beth Hassett,
Aye.
Lee Turner Johnson,
Aye.
Terry Porter,
Aye.
Christina Elliott,
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy.
Aye.
Motion passed. Number 3, public comment on non-agenda items.
I do not have any speaker slips, nor do I see anyone coming to the podium.
Item 4, Executive Director's Report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just a couple of items to highlight today because we have a full audience here. In your Executive Director's Report, you'll see that there are some highlights on the Governor's May revise that pertain to First 5 efforts in the areas of early learning, childcare, and home visiting. And most especially what we're looking at is the home visitation dollars. Very timely for us right now, given the $1.3 million reduction in our Birth and Beyond contract moving forward. We're certainly hoping that this could help lessen that cut in the future. We'll keep you posted. We had our Certified Sustainable Initiative kickoff on May 21st. It was amazing. Chair Cerna, Commissioner Porter, and one of our advisory committee members, Carolyn Curtis, were all joined us. We had about 60 contractors in the room. And I think overall, the concept was met with really great enthusiasm from the participants. Our next steps will be to develop a template for the agency's sustainability plans. We reviewed a checklist with them about important things to get into their plan, as well as a long-term financial plan for each of them to create a 5-year financial plan that looks a lot like our 10-year plan, but for 5 years. And I think that They'll work in cohorts and individually with our consultants over the next 9 to 10 months to create those sustainability plans and then present them to us in May or June of next year. I am very excited, moving on, to announce that our Help Me Grow call center is now open. We have a phone number. We're accepting calls from parents and foster parents and providers. We open for business. We have calls coming in every day now. We're doing screenings online, connecting families to resources, and even doing follow-up to see if they got to those referrals. So there should be an outreach card in your packet. And I wanted to mention that our Safe Sleep Baby campaign received an award. We had commissioners and staff honored along with Sierra Health Foundation, CAPSI, Kaiser Permanente, and Dignity Health. We received the Grantland Johnson Government Innovation Award. Commissioner Cerna presented that award to a whole group of the collaborative partners. Thank you, Commissioner Turner Johnson attended along with Grantland Johnson's daughter. So Patrice, yes. So thank you very much. And thank you to CAPSI for developing such an innovative and effective and life-saving campaign that it was recognized as being very special. As for communications, the only thing I want to highlight here is a new oral health video. It's a very quick video. It was developed in Spanish, Hmong, and Russian languages. We have a quick view of it for you. It's dubbed over in English just so you can hear what they're saying, but it's better in the languages that it's really spoken in. So if you would cue the video, please.
Baby ones. Toothy has easy things you can do to prevent cavities. Brush teeth together as a family at the same time every morning and night. Don't share your toothbrush, fork, spoon, or cup. That spreads cavities. Visit a dentist every 6 months. This message brought to you by First 5 Sacramento.
And that concludes my executive director's report today.
90% of a child's brain develops by the age of 5. That means you are your child's first and most important teacher. They learn by watching you. Spend quality time together. Talk, read, sing, and play. Make every moment a learning moment, from reading to cooking or even grocery shopping. For more parenting resources, call 211. A message from First 5 Sacramento.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize there were 2 of them. So, there you go. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 5, Advisory Committee update.
I don't believe...
Robert, I do not see Robert Silva.
Yeah, I don't even think we had
there's
an
no
advisory
report.
committee. No, we had no report. Sorry, no advisory committee meeting.
Great. Next item.
Item 6, Evaluation Committee update.
Thank you. I am the chair of the committee, but I was unable to be at the May 21st meeting for travel. So our co-chair, David Gordon, was the chair, and the meeting went forward. And he's asked me to just sort of briefly say that the primary activity they undertook was to look at the school readiness report, which you're going to hear more about today, and to talk about our results-based evaluation efforts that we are undertaking, and our consultants will be talking about those at our next meeting as well. And David, if there's anything else you would like to add, okay. And thank you again for taking that. Christina and I were both off traveling, and unfortunately wanting to stay in Sacramento more if we can.
Excellent. Next item.
Item 7, Financial Planning Committee update.
We did not have a meeting.
We did not meet. All right,
Item
next
8,
item.
Sustainability Committee update.
And I also wasn't able to attend as the chair of the Sustainability Committee on May 15th. I guess it's a busy time of year, but I'm going to defer to Commissioner Porter to give us an update.
So the Sustainability Committee did meet. We spent most of our time talking about the upcoming Certified Sustainability Workshop. We went through the PowerPoint, and we also went through the actual plan, the template that was going to be used during the workshop, and did a lot of discussing about how it would come over. They had met with a focus group of 8, so many of the questions were answered by that focus group. However, we also provided some insight and some input as to how it had moved forward with that, with the template that was actually presented at the Certified Sustainability Workshop. The other item that we spent time on was the 20th anniversary for First Five. So we'd like to do a local celebration. We are in the planning stages. It looks like it will be held at Fairy Tale Town, but we are in the planning stages, early planning stages of that, so we spent time talking about those 2 items.
Thank you.
Item 9, approval of funding recommendations for First Five Sacramento Community Connections grants.
Alejandra Labrada will take this one for us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're happy to report to you that in the last 2.5 years, we have funded 34 community grants. With today, that will actually be 40. And as you know, many of these groups have brought so much diversity to Sacramento communities. These groups have included multicultural connections as well as languages other than English, such as Spanish, Eritrean, Dari, Vietnamese, Hmong, and sign language, among others. They've also focused on various topics such as special needs groups, father involvement, literacy, play, physical activity, nutrition, and school readiness. And all of these groups have included parent and child bonding activities, as well as activities that connect the group members to each other and also to their community. So today I'd like to present to you the first round of CCG grants for the new strategic plan of 2018-2021. 8 groups applied for a grant. 7 are being recommended for funding today. However, we did get word that 1 group withdrew due to personal problems, so there will actually be 6 that are being recommended for funding today. So you all have a chart in front of you. I'm going to ask the groups to stand as we, as you can see, they've all brought their little supporters here. So it's amazing, out of 6 groups, all of the people that can fill up this room. So we would like to start with our first group, and that is a dancing duo. The sponsoring agency is the Valley High Family Resource Center. They will be serving the South Sacramento Elk Grove area, and with the support of an adult, teenagers will actually be facilitating these groups. And the very unique thing about this group is it came out of teenagers who were already volunteering their time to dance instruction, and saw that a lot of parents were dropping their kids off and not bonding with their children, just dropping their kids while kids were just left to cry and wait for their parents, and they wanted to do something where parents can bond with their children through dance. So very nice thing that we've got teenagers who want to be involved in the community. The next group is Desarrollando las Imaginaciones de Nuestros Niños, that is fostering the imagination of our children. The sponsoring agency is the North Sacramento Family Resource Center, who's also here to support them. This group will meet weekly and will involve their families in interactive activities that will stimulate the children's creativity, as well as activities that will prepare them for kindergarten. These include visits to the fire stations, parks, libraries, museums, anywhere to expose them to educational opportunities in their community. The next group is Hora de Cuentos, Storytime in Spanish. The sponsoring agency is the Colonial Heights Library. This group will hold biweekly Spanish story times at the library to expose all children to the Spanish language and Latino culture. Meetings will include various cultural projects and take-home bilingual books, as well as celebrations of cultural activities. The Kijitsu project is a project that withdrew, so I'm going to skip that one. The next group is Learn Hmong with Me. The sponsoring agency is the Elk Grove Unified School District, and we have them there, great. They will be serving the South Sacramento and Elk Grove communities. This group of Hmong American moms will meet twice to share their Hmong culture, Hmong language and culture with their children, as well as the surrounding communities. And they will have Hmong vocabulary, reading, singing, arts and crafts, as well as touring educational sites. The next group is One in Heart in the Del Paso Heights community, as well as North Sac and Natomas. And this group will meet monthly to foster literacy among young children and celebrate diversity in their community. Families from different cultures will be encouraged to share their traditions through food, books, and songs. They will also include special events that foster parent-child relationships, such as a father-daughter dance or a spring tea with the little ones. The last group is the Pocket Moms, and the sponsoring agency is the Pocket Greenhaven Community Association. This group invites their community to monthly playgroups that include various themes and hands-on activities that are educational and fun. They will take place at various parks, which include themes such as science, nature, cultural diversity, and music. These are the 6 groups that we recommend for funding for this next round of CCG grants. All of the funds and these grants have already been allocated to the fiscal agent, CAPC.
Any questions? All right. Roll call vote?
I need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion.
I'll move approval.
All right. Commissioner Elliott, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Dave Gordon.
Aye.
Lee Turner Johnson.
Aye.
Olivia Kasiri.
Aye.
Terry Porter. Christina Elliott.
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy. Aye. Beth Hassett.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Great.
Congratulations. Item 10, presentation 2017 school readiness assessment.
Fantastic. Okay, we might have a change out of the audience members for a brief minute here.
Well, they get to go home
Give them
now.
just a second to.
What's that?
Are you Laura?
I'm Penny. Oh, Penny. Okay. I am doing the presentation now. Are you?
Oh, so you're gonna do yeah, I did.
I'm going to keep checking.
I'm sitting there playing with these mouse. Like this. It's like,
Great, that was nice to see. Oh, okay. So most, I don't think I saw any that were over 5. They were over 7.
weeks ago.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
We're ready to go. I'd like to introduce Penny Hong from ASR, who's going to walk us through some of the findings on a brief PowerPoint presentation. And then I believe we have a couple members from the school districts who would like to speak to you all, and maybe even some parents. So, and we have a quick video in here. Well, not super quick video. We have a video in here as well.
So how do I start up the PowerPoint? Like which one? I have so many buttons up here. Which one do I push?
They should get it for you in the back.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm here to present to you the results of the 2017 readiness assessment. Thank you. And I understand you've heard every year of this presentation, so I'll keep this brief. And this next slide just is to remind you the purpose of this assessment is to assess kindergarten readiness across the First Five network and to evaluate the relationship between First Five school readiness services and actual school readiness outcomes, and then also to identify other predictors and factors of readiness so that First Five and other stakeholders can better target their interventions to help boost the school readiness of our students. I want to remind you too that this study was not designed to be representative and is not meant to be a generalizable sample to the general population or even to the county. It's just really restricted to focus on First Five network of schools. Oops. So this next slide just briefly explains or describes the sample. So we ended up in 74 classrooms across 38 schools in the 9 districts that First Five has a big presence in. And that landed us 1,685 students who were assessed on the kindergarten observation form. And of those 1,685 students, about a third of them had been touched by First Five services in the prior 2 years before starting kindergarten. Among that 1,685, we also got 1,116 parent surveys also completed. So between the First Five administrative data, the kindergarten observation form, and the parent information form, those are the 3 main sources of data that we use to do this assessment. So again, our sample is not meant to be representative of the county, but our sample is slightly higher. We have a slightly higher percentage of English learners than is present in the general population. We have 9% of our sample had special needs. Our sample was a little bit lower income relative to the general population, a little bit lower levels of maternal education, and a higher proportion of Latino families or students are represented in our sample. 68% of our sample had had a prior preschool or transitional kindergarten experience, and then an additional 10% or so had a transitional summer program in the summer before entering kindergarten. And students in our school readiness assessment were assessed on this kindergarten observation form, which is an assessment tool that is comprised of 20 readiness skills that each student is rated on a scale of 1 to 4 by their teacher. 1 meaning they're not yet developing the skill, and 4 meaning they're proficient on the skill. So across all those 20 skill items, we categorize them into these 3 domains. We call them building blocks of school readiness. So the first one, kindergarten academics, measures early literacy, early numeracy skills. Self-regulation block measures things like being able to stay focused and follow directions in a class setting. Social expression measures the extent to which students are able to express their needs and wants appropriately. And then we also have these 2 measures of motor skills development that we don't call a block because there's only these 2 measures of how well they hold a pencil and their general coordination on the playground. So that is what all the students are assessed on. We roll up, so we have teachers assessing students on a 4-point scale on each of these items, and then we roll up each of these skills across those 3 domains. We classify readiness, or we understand readiness in terms of how well a student is rated across the domains. So if a student is scoring a 3.25 on average or higher across all 3 domains, then they're considered fully ready for kindergarten. If they're scoring an average of 3.25 on 1 or 2 domains, then they're partially ready. And if they're scoring below 3.25 across all 3 domains, then they are considered not ready for kindergarten. So based on that rubric, we find pretty consistent from last year. About 31% are fully ready, 41% are partially ready. So taken together, we have 72% of our students partially or fully ready to start kindergarten. And that 72% is exactly the same as we found last year. The next thing we did was we took a lot of all the predictors that we had collected data on from the KOF and the POF, so from the kindergarten observation form and the parent information form, and we tried to find the strongest predictors of school readiness. So what we found is, again, consistent with what we found in previous years and also commonly what we find in other counties. So we see that child and family background factors, such as students' age, girls tend to be more ready for school, children without special needs, children who are not English learners, and students from families of higher income tend to be more ready for school. Parent and family factors, so these include parents who have lower levels of self-reported stress. Their students have better readiness skills. Greater kindergarten preparation activities is associated with stronger school readiness skills. Participation in first 5 parent education and other services is also associated with higher school readiness skills. And playing sports at home with the family 5 or more times per week is also associated with higher school readiness. Preschool, kids who have gone to preschool are more ready for school than kids who have not. And then kids who have stronger health and well-being, so children who show up to school well-fed and well-rested tend to be more ready, and children who are not tardy, absent, or sick in class also tend to be more ready for school. So you'll notice that of these items, the ones in the purple, the child and family background ones, are a little bit less sort of amenable to interventions, right? All of the other ones are a little bit more changeable or a little bit more movable with help, with some interventions. So we had a look, the next slide shows the relationship between the numbers of assets a child has and their readiness. So what this chart shows is that among students who have all 7 of the items that are sort of more amenable to interventions, having all 7 of these assets, among students who had all 7 of these assets, 47% of them were fully ready for kindergarten. As compared to, on the other end of that scale, students who had none of those assets, only 8% of them were fully ready for school. And the converse is true as well. So if you look at that red line, among students who had 0 of these 7 assets, 49% were not ready to start kindergarten, whereas among students who had all 7 of these assets, 16% were not ready for school. So it really kind of shows us the things that we can do to help increase our students' readiness for school. So this next slide starts to focus in a little bit on one of these sort of assets that can be developed, which is preschool. So just looking at whether or not a student attended preschool, 35% of students who had a first 5 supported preschool experience were fully ready for school, as opposed to 13% who had no preschool prior to kindergarten. And then if we take a closer look at that and slice that by income, we see that among families that earn $50,000 or more annually, 25% of their students were ready, compared to 23%, so about the same. But if we focus on the figure to the left, among families that earn incomes less than $50,000, 43% of those families are ready for school, who have had first 5 supported preschool, as compared to 10% who are ready, who have not had the benefit of preschool. So this slide really shows that First 5 is targeting the target that First 5 is intending to hit. They're hitting, and it's effective for that population that they're intending to assist. So that, those last couple slides focused on preschool, but there are a lot of other First 5 activities and services that speak to these items that we found, or these factors that we found affect school readiness. So even in the child and family demographics category that, kind of contain those items that are a little bit less easy to change, First 5 investments in developmental and other health screenings could potentially help ameliorate the effects of a special needs diagnosis. Family literacy could also potentially help ameliorate, lower levels of parental education, socioeconomic status, this kind of thing. Obviously, preschool, first 5 investments around there helps to increase school readiness, but also playgroups and transition summer camps could potentially impact school readiness. In the area of child health and well-being, prenatal care and investments in healthcare access and utilization can, again, help boost readiness. In the areas of parent and family factors, parent education and supports, specifically from First 5, we have found have helped increase school readiness activities and also school readiness outcomes. Kinder preparation activities, connections to community resources can also help support families and support school readiness. So in summary, we found again that 72% of our students were ready for school, partially ready or fully ready, which is consistent with what we've found in previous years. Common factors that we find this year are again consistent with previous years, which include the family or the child characteristics such as age, gender, special needs, family background in terms of family income and maternal education. Those 2 items tend to take turns in being the driver. Preschool attendance and then child well-being are perennial sort of drivers of school readiness that we find in Sacramento as well as in other counties. First 5 supported preschools continue to have a strong association with school readiness. Children whose parents participated in First 5 parent education programs had higher readiness scores, and we saw a bigger boost among families who have lower income, same as we found with the preschool participation. And participation in other First 5 services was also associated with other factors that increase readiness, such as receiving information about school readiness and engaging in kindergarten preparation activities.
I think Commissioner Gordon had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's... Do you want to finish?
We're almost there.
Go ahead
yeah.
and finish,
Okay.
And then we'll get to questions.
There's one more slide. Is that okay if I just... Okay. So in terms of next steps, we don't have plans to continue doing the school readiness assessments past this 2017 one. We are transitioning to a results-based accountability framework to evaluate the school readiness services. And to that end, we've started doing a couple of pilot studies. So one is in the transition summer camps. We just finished a quick little analysis of a small Twin Rivers pilot study of a pre-post assessment to look at the impact of the transition program, and that had really favorable outcomes. So we are kind of scaling that up a little bit. So we have a new tool that's based on the kindergarten observation form that we used for the regular SRAs. And we are expanding across 3 districts, so Twin Rivers, Natomas, and Folsom, thank you, sorry. So those 3 districts, we're expanding the pilot study to do this pre and post this year, they start today. Today is their first day of camp. We also did a pooled analysis of transition summer camp participants looking at their school readiness outcomes and saw favorable outcomes for those who participated in summer camps as opposed to those who didn't have any previous experience. And then with playgroups too, we have some preliminary findings from a little pre-post study that we pooled across a couple of years of the family information form, and we found that parents who engaged in the playgroups had increased frequency of reading to their child. At the post-test, they were more likely to know where to find help for basic needs and more likely to know where to find help for parenting advice. So this year, we have a few new items on the family information form that we are going to start piloting this year, and also a new parent survey that we'll use for the playgroups this year. So that's our school readiness assessment. Questions?
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Gordon.
Just more of a comment. I wanted to thank our evaluation providers for a very nice job on this, but I also wanted to give a big shout out to the representatives from our school districts for all of their work in collaborating on the evaluation. It's a lot of work to get the parents involved and get them to participate, to make sure all of the data are entered in a timely fashion. And I think we're fortunate in this county to have school district staffs that are highly engaged and reaping the benefits of a lot of this work. So I wanted to say thank you to all of our school districts for all of their hard work. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Commissioner Kasiri.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. I just was wondering what you meant, because you said that you're transitioning to the results-based accountability. And did I hear you right that you're not going to be doing the school readiness assessment anymore?
That's correct. So we don't have plans to continue doing the full school readiness assessment in the school districts. What I meant by transitioning to results-based accountability is a framework that we're using to identify indicators that we want to see improved or changed across whatever services or whatever programs that are in the school readiness services sort of portfolio, without the use of the school readiness assessment formally.
Are they going to be as comprehensive as what you're doing with the readiness? I'm just wondering if you're going to focus on just one or two things, then that means that we're not going to have this assessment. So is it going to be a compromise in the information that we get?
There will be. This is a $97,000 per year contract to do the school readiness assessment and to get out into all of those schools. And so just in making our own internal cuts across evaluation for the new strategic plan, that is one of the things that we are eliminating. We have created a results-based accountability format, and so we have very specific indicators that we're going to be tracking, but we won't have this level of information going forward. One of the decisions that, one of the rationale behind that decision is that our data has been very consistent over the last 10 years. We haven't seen a large fluctuation. As staff and evaluation committee, we felt like we know what we're doing is working. We've used this level of evaluation to make some tweaks along the way in the past decade, but we really feel like what we're doing now is impactful, and we have a decade's worth of data to show that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Wirtz.
Thank you. A couple things. It's interesting. My first comment was going to be how valuable I thought it was that we have consistently done this evaluation over these years for several reasons. The first is that we are able to document that our program has worked in this particular year. Now, what it also shows me, secondly, is that we have a question to ask ourselves, and let me first say that I think, one, the evaluation is done very well. Two, the cooperation and involvement of the school districts has been superb, and three, their work has been superb. But the question I raise is, have we reached a ceiling? That 31% being ready and 72 being ready and partial, is that an acceptable ceiling? And so I think one of the questions becomes, how do we evaluate that? How are we using this data to look at quality improvement, given that we've seen that? So the second point, to not make that sound like there's any blame statement in that at all, is that you've also, because of this, I think you've helped educate us all about the complexity of child outcomes, that you can't expect one intervention to be sufficient to take account of the various factors that affect our lives, from policy to structure to opportunity to historical situations and so on. So I think it's really important to recognize recognize that, one, the number of pieces that are going in the right direction are directly connected to the outcome, and it's probably more about the number of pieces that are going in that direction than it is about any single one of those, whether it be income or whether it be exposure to preschool. So those are the points I wanted to make, is that I think this evaluation has been one of the better, and I'm not sure if it's done statewide, but it's certainly been one of the better to put this in the context of a broader evaluation of what's going on with these families and with these kids and with our interventions. So that's extremely good. So then dealing with Dr. Kasiri's question as well about whether or not it's a, what the cost benefit or the of not doing this kind of comprehensive assessment will do for us. And I think there is truth to the fact that we have been able to show that we get similar results every time, and I think that's important. However, it does set up the sort of a flat line. Why are we getting the same number? I know it's a new cohort each time, but what are we learning about how to work with those families? Do we need to be adding more support services to reduce that family stress or what it might be? So that's one of the reasons to consider. However, I think we do learn from doing research that we don't have to, we've learned these, we potentially have the data that allows us to learn these lessons. And so the question is, will we continue to work with these findings to drive the quality improvement as we go forward? And I think that's the real question, and I think it depends then on us looking at these results-based indicators that we will track and how we would use those for ongoing work. So I think it is of interest to think about what we will lose potentially in this, but I think we have a grounding in what we've learned that we should be able to use to drive our ongoing services. I would suggest that down the road at some point that we, again, re-look at whether our actual implementation gets us our actual results that we think it should on paper. That's one of my basic things about evaluation. The fact that you did it last time doesn't tell me that you're going to do it successfully the next time, just because it was using a similar approach. So I think there's a lot to be learned from this. It's a very solid piece of work that's continued over time. There's a lot to be learned about it. There's a lot more that we can be trying to do and learn, especially around our sustainability and partnering, about how else can we help these families continue their progress. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
There's a green one.
Next item.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Monine Mendoza. I'm a School Readiness Coordinator, and I wanted to go ahead and introduce this year, since it is the last school readiness assessment that has a broad range of evaluation purposes. The school districts wanted to thank you personally for 6 years of the school readiness assessment. It has been value added to their districts, and there is, as you mentioned, Commissioner Wirtz, is that some of the things that we want to do going forward, as Penny mentioned in one of the evaluations, is the school summer camps, is that information that's coming through them for the results-based accountability. For the school readiness assessment, we were able to capture that specific information. Going forward, I think you'll see results based on specific strategies that the school districts are implementing, and one of them is the summer camps. As Penny mentioned earlier, there's positives to those summer camps, especially to those children that had never had any preschool experience. It has resulted in a positive effects in come the fall, and when they get into kindergarten, they're more ready. And so you'll see some of those more specific results, I think, towards the school districts that I think will be able to get more information on them. With that, I wanted to introduce two of the school districts that will be first presenting on the video that they prepared for you. First up is Julie Montali. She is with the Twin Rivers Unified School District.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Monine said, I'm Julie Montali, the Director of Early Education over at Twin Rivers Unified. Our School Readiness Committee is comprised of the 9 districts, and you know that we have a variety of sizes from small to large. We really have valued that consistent collaboration that we've been able to do on a monthly basis. We've been able to get stronger and better together, learn a lot alongside and from each other. Through the magic of video, we have brought to you the voices of our families and our staffs to let you know straight from them the impact that some of the priorities, some to mention would be our play groups, our summer programs that have been mentioned, as well as the quality that we've been able to bring to our preschool program. So without further ado, we'd love you to enjoy the video.
I think this playgroup has changed my life. It makes it a lot easier for me to not have to search for activities. We don't have a lot of money. We're on a limited budget. And to have access to high quality toys, to have access to friends. I have built such strong relationships with a lot of people in the community by coming to the playgroup. Our teacher is really good with helping us, teach Elias how to do different things and teaching us how to talk to him, giving us different suggestions. And Elias has grown tremendously through the social interactions, through the educational activities we have. So I totally value this program. We've been coming regularly since we first found out about it, and Elias has thrived. And I recommend it to as many people as possible. I try to tell everybody how great it is, and they should come also. But I'm really appreciative of the program.
Ha beneficiado a mi hija este programa porque al principio del programa, de las clases, no se sentaba en la carpeta y a paso de las semanas pues ya empieza un poco a sentarse, a convivir un poquito con los niños porque como ella tiene autismo no se sienta mucho rato en la alfombra, no convive mucho con los niños, pero empieza ya un poco a mejorar, no a mejorar, sino a quedarse más quieta, un poquito quieta en la carpeta, a estar un poquito ya con sus compañeros, a tomar un poco ya los libros, a hojearlos, porque antes nada más los agarraba y los tiraba. Y también he visto que ha un poquito progresado de que ha venido a las clases en que ya entiende un poquito, porque antes no entendía nada.
Bueno, aprendí más herramientas para implementarlas en la educación de mi hijo, y de mis hijos, y nuevos conocimientos, más interés, interactuación propia para la educación.
How has the first 5 parenting classes helped you as a parent?
It has helped me a lot because I have better communication with my kids. I'm a parent of 4 kids, so it has helped me to have better communication with them. We spend more time together. I can do a lot of things with them now.
I think it's important that they have a foundation to begin their learning on. I think not only do they get academics, but they get socially interactive with other children and cognitive learning. I can tell you that she has blossomed since she's been here. When she came, she was 3 years old. This is her 2nd year here, and she has just, came from basically knowing nothing to letters, writing her name, knowing the letters in her name, being able to spell her name, write her alphabet. And the social skills, the manners, and the things that sometimes get overlooked in the rush of things at home, she's kind of a reminder to us now because she has learned some of those skills here. Well, I think it's important that a lot of kids that are in preschool may not have had the vision screening and the dental screening and the hearing screenings that the school has provided. They do it on a yearly basis, and you're able to get your child early intervention if that's something that needs be.
Their reading book each week, which is amazing. They give kids 3 books a week. You come home and read with them. They offer a lot of help with summer school where you can bring your kids, and they also, while they're in school, they can enjoy their time here and a lot more. The place is amazing. I have a lot of kids that go here that I know, my family. This school's been here for a while, even when they were in different locations. Miss Sarah was my sister's teacher, and he's already 10 years old. So she's been here around, and everybody's learning and loving it.
Everybody put your hands up. Okay, let's get ready to come to circle. Clean up. Thank you. We really want to make sure that their social emotional needs are taken care of. So they're learning to sit next to their friends, they're learning to listen to the teacher, follow facial expressions, and this gets them ready as they go to kindergarten to become more independent. These get these tools here and now.
It's just every step they work with you. They work with your child and you, because it's you too, the parent. They work with the parents, they work with the children to make sure education is right.
I feel that preschool is a very important part of our elementary school learning. I feel that it's that extension, that continuum. I'd really encourage our families to enroll in our preschool and then also our transitional kindergarten and kindergarten so that they're getting that really strong foundation and background so they're ready for school.
This is really cool. You might have seen some on the streets. A car. Does that look like a car? No.
We commit to working in 5 priority areas: quality teaching and learning, integrated services, and inclusion, as well as providing high-quality facilities and locations, engaging our families and communities, and finally, improving and increasing our workforce capacity. We know continuity and consistency across early learning programs will lay a strong foundation, both socio-emotionally and academically, for our children.
Playing dollhouse. Dental X. Yay.
¿Cuál es tu parte favorita de preschool? ¿Jugar?
Play and have fun. Playing with friends. Playing outside. The computer lab.
Now I want to introduce Laura Lystrip.
Explain again.
That was my favorite section.
Yeah, that's a favorite section. She wanted to say a few words to close it up, and then afterwards I want the school districts and some of the parents and children came by and wanted to say thank you personally. So, Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Lystrip, and I am grateful to be the closer of this presentation that extends to that goes back to the presentations prior to our movie. I think that it's amazing the work that we've done as we celebrate this 20th anniversary. It's tremendous. I think that when you think about all of the districts that have come together and all of the community agencies that have come together to develop relevant programs and programs that under your wisdom, your guidance, have evolved through the years. Many of us have flagship programs that, such as Play Pals, play groups, such as preschool slots, such as working with parents, but all of us have been able to make our programs unique to help our youngest learners meet that trajectory to the elementary school years. And we are using a lot of evaluation tools. I certainly have appreciated the formal tools as well, because it does help us make sure that our programs each cycle and within the cycles are able to reflect the true needs of the community. And I think that for myself, I have been so grateful to have research-based programs that have developed by partnerships specifically with the other school readiness programs, with the leadership of First Five, and with the trust of you as the commissioners. It's been tremendous, and it has made an amazing impact on all of our districts. As you know, these programs are not funded through the state. They aren't funded through CSPP programs, through Head Start programs necessarily. So we've been able to give our families a gift that really does become a trajectory, a way for our children and our parents to be successful in the elementary years and beyond. And I can't thank you enough for that, and I know that I speak on behalf of all of the school districts here and all of the mommies and daddies that had to leave with their little ones. You know, it's nap time now. I think that you have been tremendous in even those times when you have asked us to reconsider a process of service, to reconsider how we make the best with our funding, et cetera. We've been able to do that, and that's because we've had a lot of trust on both sides and because we want what's best for our children. So I appreciate it, and this movie, this video just reflected, I think, a little. It's hard to not reflect back to when we first began play groups, back to when we first began developing additional slots. We first adopted social emotional training, the teaching pyramid, and the impact that our families have had. We see them as families who are more involved, K-6, probably beyond that. I'm not at a high school level right now with my students, but I think that it's just important that we know that our impact is immeasurable. I think that the thousands of students, the thousands of families would tell you the same thing. So many thanks to all of you. We're confident in this next cycle. We know that we will be able to meet the goals that we've set forward under the guidance and with the continued support of First Five leadership and of all of you. And we appreciate you, and we so appreciate your steadfast commitment to our youngest learners and their families. So thank you very, very much. And we have school readiness coordinators from all 9 of our districts here.
And the families,
and we have families.
Oh, some families came by to support and show their support.
Persevere. Thank you. Thank you, friend. Thank you.
We have a couple of thank you cards that the children made. That there's one for most of you.
They didn't know the number, so I'm going to just go ahead and start over here.
There you go.
So yes, it's one from one of the San Juan Unified School Districts, their play groups. I had the pleasure of going out to them last week, and they were busy coloring and making those thank you cards for you.
That's great. Any other comments? Thank you very much for all the work that all of you have done and for coming today. We appreciate it. All right, next item.
11, approval of renewal of memorandum of understanding with Sacramento County Department of Child, Family, and Adult Services for Black Child Legacy Campaign Coordination.
Linda Fong Samara is here to take this one on.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today we are requesting authority to renew, as Gail mentioned, a memorandum of understanding with the Sacramento County Department of Child, Family, and Adult Services. It was previously known as Department of Health and Human Services, for the contract term of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th of 2019 for a maximum payment of $100,000 to provide contracted staff support for the Steering Committee on the Reduction of African American Child Deaths. In addition, we would like to request the authority for the option for our executive director or her designee to extend the agreement for up to 2 additional one-year terms at $100,000 each. In terms of a background, as many of you are aware, we've brought the reduction of African American child deaths issue to this commission multiple times. Still, unfortunately, the disparity still exists. African American children are still dying at least twice the rate of children of other races. And given that 3 of the top 4 causes of death, perinatal conditions, infant safe sleep, child abuse and neglect, impact children ages 0 to 5, this commission has been involved in this effort since 2013, and we began funding prevention and early intervention services. At the same time, we were heavily involved in an integral part of the county-wide effort to reduce African American child deaths. We were involved in the Blue Ribbon Commission that really delved more into the data and developed a set of recommendations about what we can do about this issue so it does not continue to persist for decades upon decades. Some of the recommendations from the Blue Ribbon Commission included the development of a steering committee so that it wasn't just a report that sat on a shelf. We really were going to take action and have some momentum behind it, some continued concerted effort. And so with that, the recommendation to develop a steering committee also necessitated then a backbone organization with dedicated staff to help really keep that ball rolling, to convene regular meetings, to help develop a strategic and implementation plan, to help really coordinate and oversee efforts. So as a result, in 2013, this commission began providing $100,000 in match funding for staff support, and Sierra Health Foundation was selected through a competitive request for proposal process, and that all went through the Department of Health and Human Services. The Sierra Health Foundation has done a wonderful job helping to convene this county-wide effort with the goal to reduce African American child deaths by 10 to 20% by 2020. So we still have a lot of work to do. We really believe that it is important to continue this momentum and not disrupt the infrastructure and all the work that Sierra Health Foundation has contributed to this county-wide effort over the past few years. They've really done a lot of work developing partnerships. So at this time, in order to continue having that backbone organization, we would like to continue to ask for your authority to continue the staff support at, again, $100,000 for fiscal year 18-19, and again, give our executive director the option to renew for up to an additional 2 years of funding.
Chair, if I may,
yes.
I serve on the board of Sierra Health Foundation, so I'm going to recuse myself and leave before you have any deliberations on this.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That was it.
And just to clarify, the renewal of the Memorandum of Understanding is with the Sacramento County Department of Child, Family, and Adult Services, and they oversee the work of Sierra Health Foundation and subcontract with them.
And I do have someone signed up to speak on this matter. Frederick A. Gale, Jr.
Yes. Frederick A. Gale, 7336 Hurlong Way, North Highlands. My cup is just about run over listening to the whole presentation. My wife taught in the Rio Linda School District, one of the best. We had about 7 distinguished schools. My question is this, and as always, class I had in anthropology and culture, whatever, and I always ask the question, which is the true story, Adam and Eve or Lucy? Where we suppose have all came from, and over the years something has happened and some of us are being left behind for some reason. But those who like to read and like to be factual, there was a guy at University of Chicago, Allison Davis. If you give it a chance, read some of his material. And for kindergarten and early childhood education, Pestalozzi and Froebel, those are the ones that I did. And I don't know whether there's anything different that's happened, but sometimes I wonder, did something strange happen? And I see how well people do in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, Israel, for some reason. They don't seem to have these same kind of problems. But if you get a chance, read Allison Davis' work, and you'll find some of the answers. And when you get insurance companies and health, it's kind of like a Ponzi, follow the money trail, and you don't get results. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Wirtz?
Yeah, just a couple comments. One, back to the school readiness just for the moment. I just really wanted to say that I really value the reality of what the school coordinators have done with their overall programs, and that I think having First Five there to help bring that group together into the collaborative, I think probably was just an extra level of outcome that I think will be sustainable. The relationships, the working together is in and of itself of value. So I didn't get a chance to sort of recognize and highlight that. Related, with regard to the Black Legacy campaign, I really value the fact that we, again, have taken a long-term perspective on this. This has been a historical, generational, systematic, organizational reality that has created the disparities that have persisted to today. And I think the notion that we're putting out $100,000 out of our budget to maintain what I think is an organizing tool of a backbone kind of organization within a collective impact kind of model is really extremely valuable. It allows for our communities to continue to have the infrastructure to allow them to come together and build solutions. And I know this is a long-term kind of effort. So I just certainly support this effort and want to sort of acknowledge, both when we saw from the earlier data, that these are complex issues that have been created over a long period of time, and they're not going to be solved overnight. But they also are not going to be solved without the full engagement of our communities at the most grassroots level. So the incubator that are hubs that are being created and the leadership that comes from the partners here have been remain critical for this to be an ongoing effort to make a dent in this over time. So small investment in a large project that needs to continue.
Thank you. Commissioner Sneeringer.
And I just wanted to echo support for this. I think for the reasonable amount of investment, we are really putting forth a model that is being considered throughout the state and even further. And I know that Commissioner Cerna, Supervisor Cerna, was able to testify on this at the state capitol a couple of weeks ago. I think there's a lot of interest in this, and it's one of the most important things I think we're doing right now. So I appreciate this coming forward.
Excellent. We do need to vote on this matter.
I would move this.
Thank you.
For approval.
Second. Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Kennedy. Roll call vote.
Donna Sneeringer.
Aye.
Lee Turner Johnson.
Aye.
Olivia Kasiri.
Aye.
Terry Porter.
Aye.
Christina Elliott.
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy.
Aye.
Beth Hassett.
Aye.
Motion passed. Item 12, public hearing, annual review of the First Five Sacramento 2018-2021 strategic plan and implementation plan.
Fantastic. So each year, part of the Prop 10 statute is that we review and say yes or make small changes to our strategic plan. So we approved our strategic plan on June 5th of 2017, and then 2 months later, we approved our implementation plan, which really sort of provides the detail behind the strategic plan. And then those two documents pretty much become our roadmap for funding for the next 3 years. We will be spending approximately $60 million. 90% of that funding goes to direct services, 3% toward evaluation, and 7% toward administration. And as you know, this was a very unique strategic plan in that it's really the first time where we had to cut 20% of our funds going forward. So we went from a $25 million a year plan down to a $20 million a year plan over those 3 years. And that kind of reduction is really unprecedented in this commission's history. We made those necessary cuts through a very transparent, open, and inclusive process, and we ended with a set of plans that everybody could agree upon and would make the most impact for our children and families. So in order to meet the constraints of the new spending plan, 5 result areas were eliminated from our 2015 plan into the 2018 plan. We eliminated some programs entirely, and all the remaining programs took between a 10% to 30% cut. We also made internal cuts to our internal operations, including evaluation and administration. And while perhaps it's bittersweet, we have prioritized in these 2 plans really a truly narrower and deeper version of our previous plan, and we hope to make even deeper impacts with this plan. So the strategic plan that is in your packet has 3 priority areas: health, early care and development, and empowered families. Our most significant investments are actually in just 2 of those areas. 46% of our funding is directed to Birth and Beyond initiative, and 25% of our funding to the School Readiness Initiative. And as you can recall, we're making a more robust effort to impact sustainability and systems change with this strategic plan through public awareness, policy change, and increasing financial resources. There are no changes being recommended for the strategic plan. However, you'll notice several changes in the implementation plan. And the first one can be seen on page 11 under dental disease, decreased dental disease. As a result of our successful sustainability efforts and a new contract with the Center for Oral Health, which you heard about and approved at the last commission meeting, there's a reduction of $847,000 in this particular result area with no loss of services to children. So we're really excited about that. On page 20, under Community Connections, there's a small increase of $26,000. That's actually just a carryover from the current year to next year because we have some contracts that cross fiscal years because of the nature of the community building grants. And then across several of the other areas, dollar amounts in the specific strategies have been increased or decreased, all within the overall budget for those result areas, based on what the non-competitive applications brought back in. And we had basically given it our best guess when we brought it forward to you the first time, but now the agencies have really helped us confirm the dollar amounts for each of those strategies. The truing up of the document will have a positive impact on our ending fund balance at the end of 3 years because of the sustainability efforts in the dental program. Otherwise, it all remains the same.
Any questions? I don't have any speaker slips from the public. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. This one is a public hearing. I don't know if you have to.
Oh, do we have to open? Okay, I'll open the public hearing.
I don't know if you have to. I'll ask.
Okay, see nobody dashing down here. Close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Next item?
Do we need a motion and a second?
No, but it says no vote.
It's just a hearing.
Sorry. Item
Don't mess with me.
5 network strategy.
Great. You'll notice that this is not Moira Kennedy heading toward the podium.
Sorry,
I know. Unfortunately, Moira is out ill today, but it does give me the opportunity to introduce you to Eduardo Aguilar. And he recently joined the First Five team just last month.
Last week
officially. He is the association's new network engagement manager. And so I think it's super appropriate that you're here to talk about the network strategy with us today, sort of his trial by fire. But I'm here to tag team if needed, and I just thank you for coming and for sharing with us.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you so much to everybody for having me here. As Julie pointed out, this is day 6 of me being with the association, so please forgive me if I don't fully have this memorized yet. But I'm excited to be here before you and to really just celebrate the incredible work that is happening in this community and to use it as an example of what we're trying to do at the state level. So let me make sure my clicker works here. So what we're here to really talk about today is a shared strategy. After 20 years with our recent 2 decades in service for First Fives across the state, what we're really looking to do is how do we continue to grow the impact that our First Fives across the state are having while doing so in an environment where we're facing a fiscal cliff. And so being able to make sure that we're being as smart as possible, as coordinated as possible, and working to really learn from each other so that we're able to really leverage all of these incredible strengths and assets that we have in our communities and the incredible wisdom that we have. So when it comes to our theory of change, what we're really looking at elevating for folks, and many of you in this room are already familiar with it, is the Heckman curve, where when you look at the impact of investments when you're looking at targeting interventions, the interventions that are invested in the early years tend to have the highest return on investment. And what we mean by that is that by over time, the students that have access to the interventions at the early years are able to start at a higher point that they would otherwise, and so therefore be more school ready, be able to engage with their peers in a more constructive way that reduces the need for behavioral suspensions, and also are able to access health services that keep them in school, which, as was pointed out too by the wonderful work by ASR earlier, all of these small factors play a key role in ensuring the success of our students and families longer term. When it comes to the work that we're seeing here, and many of you have experienced it firsthand as parents, we're seeing it as the ASR over 10, with 6 years of this evaluation report being in place, we're seeing the impact that the types of services that First Five is able to directly engage in or help promote in districts throughout the county really help create a ripple effect throughout, right? So as you look at the types of impacts that we have, we're really looking at family resiliency. And so these services are not isolated in serving just the student, because we know, though there is value in that, we understand that that student is part of a broader ecosystem that includes their family, that includes their neighborhood, and that includes their broader community. And so if we're put our blinders on and don't engage in those settings, which I'm happy to say First Fives are not guilty of that, we could find ourselves in a place where we're not achieving the kind of outcomes that we need to achieve for our kids. We're also seeing incredible benefits in terms of the health and wellness of our children as a result of getting access to screenings and access to health services that they would not be getting otherwise. And finally, really when it comes down to the incredible work that is being done in helping to connect younger children and families with access to early care and early learning, what you're really doing is you are at the forefront of really closing the achievement gap before it even gets a chance to expand. For those of you that are not familiar, and I'm blanking on the researcher's name, but the achievement gap has been traced back to as early as 18 months, right, in the number of words that students or children are exposed to. And so when you factor that in, and the fact that in most cases, even school readiness, we don't test until they're age 5, we're talking about a 3.5-year gap that has already been allowed to grow. Right? And so through the incredible partnerships and relationships that First Fives are able to cultivate, we're really able to get ahead of that in ways that would otherwise be impossible. So it's an incredible service, and your leadership is just astounding. The other thing that we want to look at is that even though we see this incredible work and we're surrounded by it, one of the depressing statistics is that when we look globally, in the among economically developed industrialized countries, we are third to last, just above Mexico and Turkey. Right? So when it comes to what we spend as a country on services that serve our young children and families, we're talking about a 0.6% of our overall GDP. So this is 2013 data. I want to contrast that to what we spend in that year as an entire country on overall education, which includes K-12, higher education and such, which is 7.6%. Right, so 7.6% of our funds in 2013 went to overall education, but only 0.6 of that came to early childhood. And so as we're continuing to engage and really tap into your leadership and your expertise, it's about making sure that every single dollar that gets drawn in is used to maximum impact, and that we're able to leverage those dollars to create new dollars whenever possible. One of the things that I really heard in the report and that I've seen from the work that I've been doing over the years in this realm is that even though there are incredible organizations that are out there serving our families, one of the biggest issues that continues to prevail is their ability or inability to navigate the various systems. I came over from another organization where we did early childhood policy, and just trying to wrap my head around why these dollars could be used for this, and why I heard too many times of the stories of a very proactive school saying we want to serve our kids, but we can only serve them for this period of time in this classroom, and then we need to get them all in line and just shuffle them across the hallway and get them into this classroom because now we're using these funds for these kids. Same, for the most part, same group of kids, different instructor, but all because of these very archaic, not conducive systems that have been set up over the years. And so even though there are incredible resources, and I'm happy to hear that Help Me Grow is up and running in the county, we're able to help navigate or at least connect families with these resources that exist, but that they would otherwise go without ever knowing or ever being able to access them. And so as we're really looking at the impact of the challenges that families are facing, when you look at some of these statistics where for families, nearly 1 in 7 children report some form of abuse or neglect for the age of 5, right? You look at the comprehensive health where, and I think this is where there's a lot in the report that I want to dig back into when I get a chance, but as many as 10,000 kids don't have access to preventative health services. Whereas these are services that we know one of the biggest challenges for attendance among younger children is dental, right? So I'm really excited to hear about the incredible work that's going on with oral health in the county. And so when we talk about early childhood learning, really about only 1 in 2 are having actual access to the types of supports that are going to help really close this gap for them. So this is our understanding. This is what we know, this is what you know, and this is what we're trying to address. There's not enough money in the system. The system is a little convoluted, and that's putting it politely. And there's inequality that exists throughout. And so, as much as we would like to just do whatever we can to address all 3 of these, we know that nobody, unfortunately, has the full capacity to impact these issues on a grander scale by working alone. And so just as you were able to show through the incredible programs that were funded here and the 40 different programs that have been funded over the course of First Five's history, it takes a village to raise our children. And so as we look at what we're trying to do at the state level with through the association, through incredible leadership provided by executive directors and commissioners and incredible staff throughout the state, what we're really looking to do is leverage the strengths and assets that all First Fives across the state bring. On one level, they're a significant funder. In some cases, they're the only funder, aside from a county office that is receiving preschool dollars for early childhood. And so that's a critical asset that we can leverage as we continue to do this work. One of another piece is the local expertise. Just as the BCLC values the incredible knowledge that exists at the community level, right? Because even though we would want to think that we kind of knew what needed to get done, it really does take somebody that is living, breathing, walking those streets, engaging with those parents on a daily basis, and bringing that firsthand expertise in order for us to truly understand what those needs are, and being able to then empower them to do that kind of work. That's one of the key pieces of the strategy as we're moving forward, is tapping into your expertise. Nobody knows your community like you do. I'm from Sacramento County, so that's, even I'm not quite there yet, but I definitely know that it does take, I would not be able to walk into even just our neighbor in San Joaquin or Yolo County and say, this is what you need. I would not be able to walk in, even though I grew up in Sacramento City Unified, and just go to Twin Rivers and say, this is what you guys need. That's just a false assumption that we're making sure that we don't make as we continue to expand this. The other pieces here is extensive partnerships, the incredible work that gets done and how you're able to replicate that and multiply that year after year through the incredible collaborations that you help connect in the community as well as with key decision makers. That's an incredible asset that we're hoping to be able to empower you to even take to another level and continue to grow it. And of course, there's just the general voter mandate the First Fives have in order to help continue to make this work and move it forward. So, as we move forward, there are three kind of core buckets that we're looking at in terms of where we want to continue to make progress. And of course, our priorities are much larger, but we have to distill them down to a handful so that we can actually see ourselves moving forward. And so the three main buckets are resilient families, comprehensive health and improvements and developments, and quality early learning. Sacramento County and First Five have really been able to show progress in almost all of these through the collaborations and investments that are being made in this community. So we want to thank you for being an absolute leader in this work and want to continue to tap into that and learn from you to see where we can continue to advance this work statewide. And I apologize to be breezing through this. This is all incredibly important information, but you guys have all had a long day, and so I want to make sure that I'm not keeping you longer than you need to. Overall, when we talk about the network strategy, there are 5 elements that we're going to continue to build out, and this is what I was brought on board to do. And so the 5 elements, as you can see here, are communications, advocacy, collaboration, skill and capacity building, and innovation and learning. For the most part, what we see is that there's already these elements. If you were to just sit down and look at the work that you're doing in the county, you're already doing all 5 of these to some level, right? Our goal is to be able to tap into that expertise and that energy and that momentum and be able to raise that up to another level so that we can continue to impact and influence systems on a broader scale, ideally statewide, and who knows, one day maybe even nationally, more so than we're already doing. So when it comes down to the overall mission and vision, this is how we're connecting those 2 dots. So when we talk about the mission that we're looking to achieve, it's about building those early childhood systems and supports that are needed to ensure that children are successful and families are thriving. The vision that we have for that is making sure that the success can be measured and that we're measuring and promoting the success of all of our youngest children. And those 5 elements that I mentioned earlier are our strategy for how we're going to get there. So through that communications, advocacy, collaboration, skill building, and that innovation and that learning from each other as we move forward. Julia, chime in or
yeah, you're
good?
All right. Okay.
So I'll skip over this slide, but really what we're looking to do is these are the strengths that we see in terms of our First Five network and how we're really able to bring this to the head and bring it into action is really these 4 criteria here. As we move forward, and this is where I kind of want to focus the remainder of the presentation. As we move forward, as you all know, within any successful collaboration, there are distinct roles that are played by each of the folks involved. And whenever you can, you want to really eliminate that duplication of energy because it's energy that could be spent otherwise and allocated to be even more effective than it is. And so as we're looking at this particular schema that is presented here before you was developed over a year of conversations with executive directors across the state, Julie being one of these incredible executive directors that chimed in and helped to really shape what this looked like. So within the local commissions, we really believe and want to continue to strengthen that local funding and support that local strategy. We want to make sure that we continue to support your leadership in creating innovation hubs locally and pilots that we can learn from and cultivating those relationships that we can continue to strengthen and make sure that we're growing into the next level. At the association level, we want to make sure that we're helping to continue to facilitate the strategic vision, but do so in a flexible way. We understand that needs are going to change, opportunities are going to present themselves that we could never anticipate, but nevertheless, we want to make sure that as a whole, we're all pulling in the same direction. so we can continue to make this progress on behalf of our kids. Also, we know that every county has an incredible knowledge base that it's been able to develop over the years, and rather than allow for partners across the state to continuously reinvent the wheel, we want to find ways to bring this knowledge together in a much more curated and cultivated way so that folks can have access to it and hit the ground running at a faster clip than they currently are able to do so. We also want to make sure that we leverage this incredible network to help push forward policy change that really benefits our children and families. And really, we're anchoring this in a structure that allows for us to really continue to build that regional network of First Fives so that they're really feeding into each other, that we're really learning from each other and continuing to grow. And at the State Commission, continuing to work with them to make sure that we're pushing forward on media and the communication work that needs to be out there so that folks in the Capitol and folks throughout the state understand the importance of early childhood and don't just see it as daycare, which is one of those things that I was sitting in on a committee hearing at the Capitol not too long ago, and I'm just glad that the legislator didn't make eye contact with me because I was staring daggers at some of the comments that he was making in terms of how he was presenting early childhood. And really being able to kind of continue to cultivate those relationships and that understanding at the state. So what can we do together? And this is it. This is the call to action for all of you, right? Because I don't want to leave you here just with this jumble of information. Really what we want to tap into you and tap into your peers across the state is to be able to really bring your vote or bring your work to scale. Right? And what we mean by that is not only just at your county, but also as we're looking at the region and at the state level, so that these incredible efforts that you're helping to lead and seed in your community don't just continue to go without any type of notice or attention across the state. So we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to work with you all to secure more funding from the state, from the federal government, and really work with funders to be able to make those strategic investments that are going to allow for us to grow this in a much more coordinated and effective way. Make sure that we're promoting better policies across the board so that we're not continuing to kind of hit these walls and having to almost create a dedicated position just to untangle the funding sources, but be able to just serve our kids the way that we need to, and really just promote overall collaboration. So as you think about this, as you go back, really start to think about what your role can be and what you see for yourself as we continue to do this work, because I'll be working closely with Julie and all executive directors across the state to make sure that we're tapping into your expertise and experience and your wisdom and your leadership to make sure that we get this done. And with that, ultimately someday, our work will be judged by the success of our children rather than by the dollars that get sent their way. So thank you. And any questions, comments?
Any questions? Oh, Commissioner Elliott.
So not really a question. So Commissioner Hassett and I were at the launch of this presentation, and so we haven't had the opportunity to debrief, but so we've seen this before, and I have to say that the discussions amongst commissioners, was that in April?
Yep.
Yes, a while ago now. Back in April were really enlightening and encouraging, and the work that we're doing on sustainability is kind of groundbreaking, and I just felt really proud to kind of talk about the stuff that we're doing in sustainability with other commissioners around the state. It was kind of a point of pride. I'm sure you experienced the same thing at your table, Beth. But so I was looking forward to this presentation because after Moira was done at the summit, she had mentioned that you guys would kind of go on a tour of all the commissions. So I'm really happy that this has happened and that my fellow commissioners have seen this, and this commission is certainly on board to be innovative and test new ideas, and I think that the work that you probably heard us speak about today kind of speaks to that we do kind of think like that already. So this is really exciting. We're all very flexible and amiable to whatever changes need to happen to make sure that we're one united force. I mean, even on social media, I've noticed across the board that we're hashtagging First Five and not necessarily First Five Sacramento. We want to be a united front. So I hope that as you guys tour other commissions, you see the same standard from other commissions as a whole, because I really felt like we are on the same path, which is encouraging. So thanks for all the work you guys are doing. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
And so we're ready to start this work. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Sneeringer?
So I guess mine's going to be a little more comment than question as well, although I would love to give you a good question on your 6th day. I've had a chance to work with Eduardo in the past, so it would be fun to find something for you. But I think that this is obviously really exciting, and I have the opportunity in my day job to work with a lot of different commissions around the state and the State Commission. But I think where First Five is uniquely positioned, and I think we can all think about this with our own funded projects, but also as the association looks at this work, there are a lot of needs for cross-sectoral conversations and innovations. And I got very involved a couple years ago in a conversation around childcare needs for foster families. I think that's the tip of the iceberg. I think there are homelessness issues. I think there are child poverty issues. And just thinking back to our school readiness presentation earlier, the better off a family is, the better off a child is going to be. And we need to think about that as we look at our funded projects. And I know we're looking at fiscal sustainability, but I think we need to also think about how we're fostering those crossover conversations so that families aren't dealing with that myriad of confusion. And but I think First Five is uniquely positioned to do that because we do have that cross-sectoral funder position. Yeah. So I really am appreciative of this work, and thank you.
No, thank you for sharing that.
Commissioner Wirtz?
Well, I was going to ask how well connected our sustainability group is, and I've known and see, and we've heard reports that they've been actively involved with this as well. But two, I just welcome to you, and Moira has been a wonderful force at the association level to bring forth this kind of vision. I have to say that, I read over this and I just thought it's an excellent overview of a collective impact kind of approach. It just touches on everything that we need to about needing to balance our need for serving special populations and getting services to people, but at the same time to look at the structural and systemic parts of this. And I really have seen a growth in California around First Five to become a force for children and families as a hub for this vision. So I'm extremely excited. I read this and I was just so pleased with every word of it. I said, wow, that's what I'm writing at the same time. So it's just so nice to see, and I really do think that we're building the political will and the groundswell of interest and understanding that can make our children and our families come first. So thank you for the effort. I think there's so much more to do as we've understood the complexity of the nature of the problem and the need for the cross-sector component of this. But I think this is the kind of state-level piece that we need to build at the community level as well. So thank you.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
Julie?
I just wanted to wrap it up and to say that I just feel like First Five Sacramento was so well positioned to do this work. And we've evolved that way over the last couple of years. Our staff reflects this, but also I think I always joke about having 14 commissioners, which is the second most of any commission in the state other than Contra Costa, and the care and feeding of the commissioners, and we joke about it. But honestly, it's such a benefit to have 14 commissioners, because as we move into this work, your roles change slightly with staff asking you to testify or to come and be a part of an interdisciplinary team. We have that not only at the county by being part of the county structure. I have access to other county department heads, but because of you and all the different positions you hold at the state level, we have the ability to really make impact. And so I just couldn't be more pleased with the work that the association did in pulling this together. And we are 58 counties, we are one First Five association, and we're one First Five California. But when we all work together, we can have such a bigger impact than just looking at what's happening in our own backyard. And I feel like this is the first and really obvious step that we just haven't taken. We've been so busy building programs out that this is the first time we've actually stopped to look at what is our impact as we work together as a network to do work rather than individually.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Commissioner Gordon?
Thank you, and great presentation. Thank you very much. I agree, and Julie, I commend you and your team for all of the work on being prepared, looking forward, sustainability, and so on. I think one of the things that we're confronting in all of this is the need to deliver messages locally.
Yeah.
Because I think people will listen to us local people if we send the message around the county. And I think sustainability needs to mean, unfortunately, we work too much in silos. So sustainability has to mean not pumping up our own budget so we don't run out of money, but it really means sustaining the community vitality that comes from making sure our families and our children are well cared for. I'll never forget the presentation, Julie, you brought to us, the professor from USC, who said to us, folks, we're running out of children. The birth rates are down, the immigration rates are down. We don't have enough young people to sustain the economy and the functioning of our state. People don't know that. They don't have any idea of that. The second thing I think that's important is when people look at us, they see more also the services that the county provides. It's not just the first 5 budgeted services. Right. It's how we organize and impact some of the services that the county contributes to providing. The Black Child Legacy Campaign being a great example, or the Birth and Beyond program, the work with CPS. With the school districts, I think we have a unique challenge because there's siloing there also, and I think with the local control funding formula and the LCAP, the trap we've kind of gotten into is that the involvement of stakeholders, so to speak, has come to mean people with a stake in the school district's budget, not in the overall funding that comes to enhance the well-being of young people and families. So one of the things I think we could relatively easily organize is find some champions on each of our local school boards and have someone go forth to meet with the local school boards, get on the agenda, and have this conversation and let them know where we are and where the association is statewide and how they can help and how we can change some of the conversation around that. So I'm enormously optimistic. And once again, Julie, thank you so much, because I think you've built exactly the right collaborative foundation for having the discussion. These discussions won't always be easy, but I think you've built the foundation that together we will get a lot farther. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Commissioner Elliott.
Sorry, I just wanted to add really quickly that the biggest thing that I've noticed from the time that we started the conversations around sustainability, implementing sustainability, and our efforts at the Capitol each year, this year, I mean, it could have been because of the 20th year anniversary and the hype around that, it felt like it was more effective, but I don't think it was just that. I think it was this foundation that's been laid from all of the commissions with the leadership of the association. So I just wanted to note that as me and my youngest daughter, Harper, were walking around the Capitol with everybody else, I felt influential. You know, it felt like they heard us, and it felt like when they knew that we were on the agenda, we saw more legislators. From the first year we did it, I didn't see any legislators. Yep. You know, and then this year, I think we met mostly with legislators, and that alone says volumes about, you know, the progress that we're having as a, you know, statewide effort. So I wanted to note that. I thought I was very impressed.
Thank you for sharing that.
Commissioner Turner Johnson.
To me, this speaks to our role as advocates. I'm the most disturbing slide, and again, it's not new news, but finding the United States position internationally in its funding of children never ceases to wave over me with and eliciting a huge amount of passion and embarrassment. So as advocates, what I think is that we are in the capital of California, and we all know that California very often has the opportunity to set pace nationally. And so while we should be incredibly proud of all the work that is being done by all of you, and thank you, and a wonderful presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I think, and proud of our own work in sustainability and evaluation and all the many things that we do. I think taking Dr. Gordon's idea of building the capacity of those that we serve, and with them, making sure, we happen to know that recently that we have a surplus in our state budget. And while some of that money has already been designated for pockets, I just want to point out that it's sometimes 2 steps backwards and then 1 step forward, meaning that we had slots removed. And I'm not quite certain, I'm sorry if I'm being too specific or candid, but I want to say that every time one of our leaders says to us, you know, I've just added so many slots, I have to restrain myself from saying, yes, and we're still 400 short, but I don't say that because we have to remember it. We are the advocates for early childhood and families, and we need to remember. I think if we would go beyond what we're doing, using our local ability to speak and to work with legislation, including Harper, that I think what we need to do is set our sights even higher. We are in the state of California, in the capital. Yeah. Let's use that, and let's try to set a pace for the nation. And the Black Child Legacy, not because of my personal attachment, but I just want to say I'm so proud of Supervisor Cerna and what they're doing. And we have something to build on that. That takes attention. It already is. We should use that for even greater uses.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Wirtz.
Yeah, sorry to add something more, but with the comment about what was the most valuable thing you saw there in this, that one of the things I just wanted to highlight again is how difficult this task is. You've laid out what we need to do, but the figure that strikes me is that 47% of California's children live in or near poverty. Yeah. That comes from the Stanford Poverty Center and the Public Policy Institute of California, and I think it just underlies the structural and economic opportunity and grounding that we also have to build all our services around. And it just points out again that balance, that we could do everything we can conceivably do with the money we're given, and we're not going to be totally successful until and unless we change the environment in which our kids and families struggle to make a economic living and secure housing and secure food. So it's a bigger issue than we can do with services, and that's why this is so valuable as a network to be looking at those broader issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other comments on this matter? Welcome.
Thank you.
Forward to seeing you again.
Likewise.
Item 14, commission member comments.
Anybody have the urge to say anything else?
We've set it up.
Used it all up. All right, then we are adjourned at 2:18.